5 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Wednesday morning. If I were to ask you or anybody, what is the riskiest thing you've ever done? The riskiest thing you've ever done. I wonder how many of us would look back, depending on how old we are. I wonder if we would look back to when we were like right at that cusp of childhood and adulthood, like maybe 17, 18, 19 years old, you know? Because I feel like in those years, I was really more willing to go out on a limb and to just take a chance at, you know, I went out to California with nothing. I went up to New York with nothing. And I did so many things back in those days. And now I feel like I'm more cautious. And the book that we're about to talk about made me think that. I thought, well, gosh, I really have something has happened. And I'd like to be that risk taker again, I think. Now, I went with you to a casino.
Yes.
Now, you're a risk taker.
I do.
I had to stop you.
I know.
You had that look. You had that look. The same look that you had a slot machine. It's like a man at a strip club. You had that same look in your eyes.
I know. I went to the ATM and you said no after I lost. I said, "Get more money,
but at least putting money into the slot machine, you could win something.
Exactly.
A guy putting money into a garter belt not going to win anything.
Well, no, but you got a great visual.
Thank you for appreciating our appreciation.
I love your comparison, though. Women are to casinos as men are to strip clubs.
Actually,
I think it's a true statement.
Our guest, Kayt Sukel, might have something to say about that. Her book is called The Art of Risk, but she's also the author. I believe she was on to talk about your brain on sex, right?
Yes.
I believe she talked about that once before. Kayt Sukel, good to have you back. You are a contributor to the Washington Post, The Atlantic, New Scientist, USA Today. You're a member of the Society of Journalists and Authors and the National Association of Science Writers. And this is a fascinating book, The Art of Risk, The New Science of Courage, Caution, and Chance. Good morning, Kayt.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Pretty good. The one thing I didn't get is that it was a science. I figured it was just us being risk takers.
You know, the thing is, we talk about risk taking all the time as if it's a personality trait, right? He's a risk taker. She's a risk taker.
Yeah.
In fact, in your intro, you just talked about that. You're a risk taker. But really, you know, the science is risk taking is a process. It is just part and parcel of decision making. And so in actuality, all of us are risk takers, not just, you know, your 19-year-old self, but even your present-day self as well. And all of us have the ability to sort of harness risk and better understand it to make better decisions, which is the good news. It's not just left to superheroes and, you know, drug addicts. Of course, we don't really aspire to, you know, drug addiction.
But you know, something like jumping out of an airplane, as risky as that is, that seems like less of a risk than quitting your job. You know, to take on an entrepreneurial venture or something like that. It seems riskier to do that than to jump out of an airplane.
Well, and in fact, it is. I mean, if you think about jumping out of an airplane, it's not like you know, you're on a flight down to I don't know, Orlando or something, and you just decide, hey, I'm going to open the door to 747 and jump out.
Now that would be risky. That would be risky. Yeah.
I mean, when you go skydiving, you have to sit through classes. You have to learn to take an arch. You learn how to pack a parachute. Most people do it tandem, which means that they're attached to somebody who has hours and hours and hundreds, probably thousands of hours of jump time. So, you know, the problem is that the outcome there, the potential outcome of becoming a really messy puddle on the ground is something we're not that familiar with and seems really scary. Yeah. But, you know, you're right, changing jobs or leaving everything behind, because then you have, you know, this other sort of outcome, which I think is even more something you can imagine even better. Being broke and alone and living in a van down by the river. So,
I don't like that.
Well, at least you're down by the river. At least you're not in the desert.
Yeah, you can take a
okay.
Yeah, but it's that part of the river that smells really bad.
Oh, it's that part. Okay.
You know,
Okay.
But I think you know, we really sort of think about risk in terms of extreme sports, billion-dollar, you know, business deals, all in poker hands, and it's not. It's really just every decision you make every single day has a little bit of uncertainty in it. There's that line about, you know, nothing's certain except death and taxes. Even death and taxes have a certain amount of uncertainty into it. You know, you don't know how you're going to die, and oh my gosh, I never am able to predict how much I'm going to owe Uncle Sam every year. So, you know. It's all a crapshoot.
Right. So the one thing that came to my mind as we were looking through the book is the idea that we may or may not be risk takers, but we are certainly risk spectators. We like to watch these reality shows and things like that, even if it's fiction.
Right.
Where we see other people taking risks. We like to watch people risking things.
I think a lot of us the brain likes novelty. If you think about the brain, what it's in the prediction business. We live in an environment that is always changing. It's so dynamic. All this information is coming into your brain all the time, right? It needs to know what it should pay attention to in order to help you survive. And so some of these things that we see in these reality shows, whether it's eating a cockroach on Survivor or some, hair-pulling cat fights, these are actually triggering these really sort of primitive areas of the brain that are there to help us survive in the wild. If we were still gathering roots and hunting, out in the savannah somewhere. And so I think that's what sort of captures our attention. These things are meant to capture our attention because, oh my gosh, that's violence. That's something that I need to, protect myself from. Oh, that's love. That's like love. That's something I want. And oh my, the thing that I find so funny is why people are so addicted to cooking shows. I have one friend, she's like, I don't even like to cook.
Me too.
But, here again, this is something that really attracts these primitive parts of the brain because we love food, especially calories. So even if you have no intention of, ever trying to do whatever these chefs do, you like watching them. So I think that a lot of times we like people taking risks, and really it's the sensation of it because we get to watch it and we get some of these feelings about it, but we don't actually have to put ourselves out there.
That's true.
Age and finance play extreme factors in risk-taking because when a person is young, like if you're in your 20s after you graduate from high school and then you're going out in the world and you go across the country or even backpacking in Europe, you always have a safety net when you're young because chances are you have parents, they have some money that they can help you out if you fall and fail. But once you get to be an adult, the kids are grown, and then you start taking risks, it's all in your lap. You have to make sure that you've got the finances to see you through.
Well, I think, there are a couple things there that, in addition, when you're a kid, even if you don't have parents to fall back on, when you have nothing, you don't have that much to lose, right?
Yeah, right.
So as you get older, if you go from nothing to nothing, you're still doing pretty good. But when you get older, and I think especially when you start having to take care of children, there are a few things going on. And certainly the research supports that as we get older, we get more risk averse. Now, one part of it is we definitely have experience. We know what the potential outcomes of our failures can be. So if we decide to pick up and, quit our job and move to a new city without first, procuring some gainful employment, we understand we may not have a place to live. We may not be able to, feed our children. And that's terrifying. Whereas when you're 19, you don't really think about it that much.
Yeah.
But there's also something going on in the brain. We're creatures of habit. We get into ruts. And a lot of times, we don't think things through. So what about if we change that scenario a little bit and it's quitting your job and moving across the country for a great opportunity at a startup? Now, you can think of 10,000 different reasons why you shouldn't do that. Oh, I have seniority in my current position. Oh, I don't want to yank the kids out of school. Oh, I feel like I just got to know this city. I don't want to move to a new city. We start talking ourselves out of these things right away without thinking about what the benefits could be. And that could be a great new job.
That's true.
New challenges that are going to help us grow our skill sets and grow as a person. New friends, a new place. Things that really might make us thrive. But we kind of get in this habit of automatically just saying no and thinking of all the reasons why we shouldn't, instead of really thinking about the reasons why we should. And I think that's where we'd be better off, especially as we in our 40s and 50s, of trying to channel our inner teenager.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. Channel my, that kid I used to be, and maybe. But we have to take a little break. But I want, when we come back, to kind of focus a little bit on the book and tell us some of the interviews you did. One of the aspects of risk that I have never experienced is, I don't think, unless I can think of an exception, but like a firefighter always has to risk for somebody else's sake.
Right.
So that's a different kind of a risk. So let's take a little break, and when we come back, I want to make sure we get that part of this book into this conversation. We'll take a little break. Kayt Sukel on the phone with us. Where are you, Kayt? Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Houston, Texas.
Houston. All right. We'll be right back with Kayt.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For this Wednesday, intervals of clouds and sunshine with a high of 78 to 82. Partly cloudy Wednesday night, lows ranging from the mid and upper 40s in a few inland locations to 59 along the coast. For Thursday, intervals of clouds and sun, the high 78 to 82. On Friday, mostly sunny with highs in the 70s to around 80. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Central Florida Eye Institute is the area's leader in laser vision correction. From high-definition refraction surgery and LASIK vision correction to custom cataract, glaucoma, and diabetic treatment, you can count on Dr. Crowley and his effective, friendly staff to provide you with the quality care you deserve. Call 352-237-8400 for an appointment or more information. That number again is 352-237-8400. Looking forward to service your vision needs.
The very best in quality is Captain T's Upholstery.
Hey, this is Dan. Let me ask you a few questions. Does your boat look better with the cover on? Has your car's interior seen its better days? Stop using a towel to cover up those rips in the golf cart. Isn't it about time you had it restored to better than new with a custom upholstery from Captain T? Captain T's Upholstery has been right here in Ocala for nearly 20 years, so they know how to make your ride one of a kind. Whether you want to take that classic ride back to a factory look or put your favorite sports team front and center, Captain T's Upholstery is who to call. 352-369-1810. That's 352-369-1810. Or stop by their location, 5030 South Pine Avenue in Ocala, just past the drive-in. And of course, don't forget to visit them on the web, CaptainTUpholstery.com.
The very best in quality is Captain T's Upholstery.
That was the sound of a tree falling. It could be your tree. You're going to have it trimmed, but never got around to calling Pride Tree Service. It could have fallen in a field, and now all you have to do is call Pride Tree Service, and they'll have it quickly out of the way for a great price. But don't wait until the tree falls. It may not fall in the field. It may hit your car, your house, or worse. So call Pride Tree Service today and avoid all those headaches before they happen. Pride Tree Service, 840-0750. That's 840-0750.
All right, 18 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in as we're in the break. Let me mention this first. Part of the morning show is brought to you in part by Dr. Thomas L. Crowley, the Central Florida Eye Institute. Is that where Alex is going for his LASIK?
Yes.
My son is going to get LASIK surgery. Talking about risks, but I guess it's pretty safe, right? Right? I shouldn't be worried about it.
I think so.
Anyway, Dr. Crowley does everything from LASIK, as I just mentioned. He's going to be doing that for my son, and maybe just eyeglasses, something maybe even more serious, diabetic eye treatments, etc. Go to the Central Florida Eye Institute, not too far from where we broadcast here. The address is 3133 Southwest 32nd Avenue, and their phone number is we got to get a new paper. This is starting to fade.
I know.
237-8400. 237-8400. On the phone, Katie Sukel is on the phone, and we're talking about risks. Her book is called The Art of Risk, The New Science of Courage, Caution, and Chance. Courage is kind of where I wanted to go with this right now. Kayt, thank you for waiting through the break.
Mm-hmm. No problem. Happy to do it.
So tell me about the people you spoke to and what you learned from the interviews.
Well, this book originally started as a way to look at the science of risk-taking, what they were learning in the lab, but I really wanted to counter it with talking to successful real-world risk-takers. I wanted to see whether what they said about the way that they approach risk sort of synced up with the science. So I talked to Steph Davis, who's a free solo climber and base jumper.
Oh, man.
She actually was the only woman that Cliff Bar dropped from sponsorship about a year ago because they think that what she does is too risky.
Too risky, wow.
Yeah, I spoke with David Baskin, who's a top-rated neurosurgeon who only works on really, hard-to-extract brain tumors. I spoke with a firefighter. I spoke with Andy Frankenberger, who's a two-time World Series of Poker champion. Basically, just a whole slew of different risk takers. One of my favorites was a guy who's an Army Special Forces operator. And what was really sort of fascinating to me in talking to all these people is even though they work in very, very different domains, what they do, their shtick is so different. They really do approach risk in the same way. And again, that's what really sort of brought out the idea that this is a process, not a trait. It's not that they're so much different from you or I. It's just that they approach the uncertainty in a really, methodical, thoughtful way. And that really is what allows them to do what they do, and to do it successfully.
And do you think risk, what's the word, begets? The risk causes, does taking a risk make us want to take more risks?
I think that when we take a risk and it's more success and we're successful, yeah, it does. It makes us think, okay, wait a minute, this is what I got to do to get that good stuff, whether it's money or food or prestige or the girl. We when we put ourselves out there and it works out in our favor, we think, okay, wait a minute, this isn't such a bad thing.
So how are they doing it in the laboratory? Are they using rats or something? How are they doing it?
In terms of looking at some of the genetic stuff, they do some rat work, but no, they bring people in and basically they use a variety of different tasks. So sometimes they're monetary lotteries. So they have people come in and say, okay, are you willing to, bet $250? Here's $250. How much of it are you willing to bet on this coin flip? And then they sort of alter the environmental variables surrounding it.
Man, I don't want to bet any of it.
Other times, what's really funny is there's this one task. It's called the BART, the Balloon Analog Risk-Taking Task. And basically what you do is you sit in front of a computer and using the space bar, you blow up a balloon. And like a regular balloon, you don't know when it's going to pop. So every time you press the space bar, it blows up a little more and you get a little bit more money on the side. And basically what you want to try to do is get as much money as you can get, so basically inflate it as much as you can without it popping, because if it pops, you lose all the money you get. And when I explain this task, it sounds kind of silly, but when you sit down and do it, you're like a junkie on the edge of your seat. You're like pressing the space bar and thinking, okay, last time I did it 5 times and I got lots of money. And it's, of course, when it pops is random.
But you know what's interesting? Hey, when we look back on our lives at the things that we were successful at, and whether it's relationships or jobs or who knows what else, you kind of can see where you took a risk in order to get to that point. So it's almost as if there is not, unless you had it handed to you like Prince Charles. I mean, and even in his case, he had his lady problems, right?
Oh yeah.
But you still have to. It's interesting how risk seems to be part of the equation in almost every achievement.
Well, that's because risk is part of the equation in every decision. Because there is uncertainty in every decision, it's also going to be, part of these huge success stories. Of course, it's also part of the horror stories as well. So let's think of, a great somebody who I like to talk about is J.K. Rowling, because the Harry Potter books, she was a single mom, she was having trouble making ends meet, but she's writing this book. And of course, it was rejected dozens of times, apparently. Now, if that book had never gotten sold, and even if it had never made billions of dollars, we'd be telling a very, very different story about J.K. Rowling. You'd be like, oh, God, she wasted all her time writing that book. A book about a wizard, man. What is up with that? She should have gotten a real job.
Yeah. And how many authors have that being said about them?
Right. Well, everybody has that one crazy uncle that's been working on a sci-fi novel since 1986, and so we that's the thing. We herald risk when it pans out.
That's right.
And then we tend to blame people when it doesn't. But I think the difference is, when we talk about somebody like J.K. Rowling, Steve Jobs, when we talk about sports heroes that have had these mistakes, that what we fail to realize is that their failures, they've learned from them. They figured out how to make them work in their favor so they could do better next time. And that's a lesson that we all can take. How do we take our failures instead of saying, this is just too hard, I can't do this, I'm not meant to do this, and, taking our toys and going home? How can we say, all right, why didn't this work this time? How can I do better?
Do you think there's an ego connection associated with risk?
It's funny because I've often thought about that, and there's not a lot of science behind it. Certainly, I think, so this is my opinion as opposed to scientific fact. I think that sometimes we think that there's an ego component, but it's not ego. What it is experience. when we see successful risk takers, it's because, they really know their domain inside and out. They're so well trained. They have so much practice and preparation. And so that gives them a lot of confidence because they know what they're doing. And so, when you meet certain people, and I think about sort of the natural confidence of this Army Special Forces operator, I interviewed, he can put people off. He can seem like a bit of a braggart sometimes. And, but the thing is that he's a really great guy, but he knows his stuff. He knows his stuff inside and out. Yeah. He knows what he's capable of doing. He knows what his body is capable of doing. He knows who he is and what he wants. Yeah. And while some people may see that as an abundance of ego, what I see that as is a lot of self-efficacy. He has a great understanding of his abilities. And I think a lot of successful risk takers do the same. It's a certain amount of self-awareness that really helps them, figure out the risk equation and how to make it work for them.
And it's very fascinating you have a professional poker player, because really that's what life is all about. It's about playing poker from the time you're born till the time you die. You have to weigh everything.
And what's funny, what I love about Andy is, he used to work in finance. He's a Wall Street guy. He left Wall Street because it wasn't fulfilling, and somehow ended up in a professional poker playing career. And while some people would say that, Wall Street and gambling are synonymous, and Andy would tell you he's not a gambler, he's a poker player, he admits that there's a lot of the same kind of risk management things going on in both cases, but it's never a gamble. It's all about being prepared. It's about being thoughtful. It's about knowing the other players at the table. And again, that's whether you're brokering some kind of Wall Street deal or, whether you're playing heads up with, ace king.
You write interesting things. I mean, you must have an idea. I don't know if you're driving and thinking of these ideas, but I mean, the books you've written are really tapping into things that are just so much fun to see what you came up with when you were doing the research. This one is really outstanding. It's called The Art of Risk, The New Science of Courage, Caution, and Chance. Call me if you want the copy that Kayt sent us. Kayt Sukel, Sukel, if you're looking her up online, and I'll get a website in just a second. Kayt, real quick, I want to tell you something. There was a story this morning about a 90-year-old woman who has cancer, who decided instead of getting the cancer treatments, she was going to go on the Great American Road Trip. And she's with her family on some RVs. She's coming to Florida, which is how I know about it. And she's actually saying, I think I'm getting healthier because I'm enjoying my life so much more. So she clearly took a risk. Do I get the cancer treatments at 90? Or do I take that trip I've always wanted to take? And so that's what she chose, the latter. So.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, I think, you're 90 years old. First of all, you get to decide what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it sounds like her family's supporting her, which is great.
Yeah, sure does, yeah.
I think that certainly there is a lot of evidence that shows that joy and novelty and excitement really does perk us up. It makes us healthier. It makes us, grow and thrive. And while, no, it's probably not going to cure her cancer, it means that she's going to go out with one hell of a bang. And,
otherwise,
I think. Yeah.
But I think the risk is worth it for her. It sounds like it's, and maybe the end of life, the beginning of life, maybe those are the times we risk the most. I don't know. Kayt, do you have a website? Let's start there. Is it just your name?
It is kaytsukel.com, KaytSukel.com. And you can find The Art of Risk wherever books are sold, although it was just named by Amazon yesterday as one of the top March picks for business and leadership, which I was pretty excited about.
And that needs to be underscored too. I mean, part of this is in business, and this will give you inspiration as to taking that risk and making your business more successful. Of course, that's a gamble too. We don't know. Kayt, Kayt, spell it right and you'll get it right. It's Kayt Sukel, Sukel. Robin actually makes it easy. Your website is already on our website, on the guest list. Thank you, Kayt. Thank you for being on with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
That was fun. We'll be right back.
Okay.
This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Lillian Wu. It was a lucky 7 states last night for Donald Trump and the Democratic front.